Hello, everyone. This presentation is about how the concept of race has developed in American history over the years. In my opinion, although circumstances and laws have changed over the years in the history of America, but the concept of race has not developed that much. If you look at history starting with the time of slavery, where people were treated in the worst possible way, to the abolition and then the Reconstruction, the concept of race was used in many ways. Firstly, white people used a biological difference to justify their action of buying human beings, just like them, transporting them to abominable conditions for months to work into their plantations. There is also the aspect of religion and how the church, that was supposed to protect and accept everyone the way they are, was overlooking the treatment of slaves by white people. White people also considered Africans as inferior, unworthy, and having no human rights just because of the color of their skin. As time passed, abolition and reconstruction of slavery took place for many reasons, but mostly because slaves were fighting back. And the growth of militant abolitionists has started to impact people socially. Moreover, the church had never condemned slavery before, started taking actions and making a stand against it. And the civil rights movement was born, and people, educated people, were fighting legally to religiously and socially. Thurgood Marshall, for instance, laid the legal foundation for the end of segregation in the South, with the legislative and executive branches of government largely indifferent to racial discrimination. Marshall turned to the court to prove that separate facilities for blacks and white were inherently unequal. He won 29 of the 32 cases he argued before the Supreme Court. In his biggest victory, Brown versus Board of Education in 1954 of Topeka, Kansas, he persuaded a unanimous Supreme Court to rule that the separate but equal doctrine was unconstitutional. And this image is a representation of that. During the early 20th century in the southern state, racial segregation was the norm and black had limited opportunities. But the 1950s brought forces to bear that would launch a powerful civil rights campaign. One of those forces were a woman who stood up to racism, but not by force, not by violence, but by just through the simple act of remaining seated on the Montgomery bus and refusing to give up her seat for a white person. During the 1960s also, a growing hunger for full equality arose among black people. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave voice to the new mood. We are through with tokenism and gradualism, and see how far you have comeism. We are through with we have done more for your people than anyone else's. We can't wait any longer. Now is the time. So all this aspect contributed to the change, to the vote or new laws to protect and to defend everybody. However, as of nowadays, where we are in the 21st century, things have evolved, but not as much, because there's still a huge gap between black and white. There's still a huge injustice against people based on their race. Today, circumstances have changed, and there are laws to protect people living in America against injustice and violation of their right. However, many people are treated unfairly. Their rights are violated just because of the color of their skin. Moreover, there is a tremendous growth in gap between the rich and the poor, the black and white Latino children. In relation to the segregation of white and Negro children in the public schools, a